And we are recording with Mr. Jim Kunstler and Mr. Andrei Martyanov on Thursday, June 29th, 2023 at 2:21 p.m. Eastern Time. Guys, if you want to go into the description, you can find Mr. Martyanov's book, Losing Military Supremacy, which he and I have covered in a past podcast. He and Jim have been on here together once before, and you can also go into the description. You can find Jim's blog, Clusterfuck Nation, or podcast and blog, whatever. I'm screwing it up. No, Kunstlercast is your podcast. Clusterfuck Nation is your blog. Andre's blog is also in there. Both their Twitter's, websites, it's all in there. Shut up. So today I wanted to talk about to Wagner, Russia, and Ukraine. Or we can talk about neuropathy and Jack Daniels and lion's mane mushroom. There's really
We
two.
will talk about this too, yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about anything. Andre, why don't you spearhead the conversation? Where do you want to take this?
Well, ask the questions. I'm sure that, and believe me, this morning I was on the podcast with Larry and Ray McGovern, discussing the same topic of Mr. Prigozhin.
Yeah.
And yesterday we were discussing with Larry, and Larry called me, and then we spoke in the evening on our phones about this. And that continues to be the topic, while in reality, it was a footnote. It was realistically not that much, if not for this jerk, who was obviously self-promoting, Mr. Prigozhin. And I want to dispel again, as I already have been on record for many months now, the guy doesn't know Putin. He never knew him, actually. He served him once at the restaurant. He just promotes himself. And what can I say?
Did I hear you right? Is that true that in fact he is not a friend of Putin?
No,
he has been sold as that for years.
Yeah, that's how it is.
As though they were intimate.
Yeah, but no, it's complete baloney, of course. He Putin probably never heard of him until recently, when he started to spew his garbage against Minister of Defense. And we have to understand what Wagner is and who Prigozhin is. And the story goes far back, and I've been doing this today together with Larry and Ray and Mike Krupp, are my great friends. But the point is that Prigozhin is merely a businessman who promoted himself nonstop. And you know what? Western media got it, swallow it, hook, line, and sinker. And they started to promoting basically completely false narrative that he's somehow connected to Mr. Putin, which he is not. Nobody would allow him nowhere near Mr. Putin except for this single photograph where he serves him a meal in one of his restaurants. That's about it. That's the only time he met Putin. And then, of course, he made photos. I would too, if I would be serving the meal to Mr. Putin. Guess what? I would have the photograph and I will start spreading it all around. And that's what he did. But in reality, it was just private military company. And many people have this complete misconcept about the way how they fought in Bakhmut. They don't know. Well, now they know. We can start speaking about it openly. My friend Marat Khairulin, who is a big-time military reporter in Russia, he reported on it for a long time now, that actually Bakhmut wasn't supposed to be happening as it did, that it was completely initiative of Mr. Prigozhin and people who his commander's council, who basically decided to take Bakhmut on their own to show off how great they are. And they immediately ran into the problem. And that's why actually he was denied his contract with Ministry of Defense. And that's when he went complete bananas. And being a shyster and a former criminal who made 2 prison terms, including for armed robbery, and actually, as Mr. Surkov, who is real Putin's acquaintance, friend, and aide for many years, he was a big honcho in his administration. He told the story. And I repeat the story for you because Mr. Surkov, you can look it up, who he is, huge person in the Russian, basically political life. And indeed, very serious advisor to Mr. Putin. He studied in 1980. A lone woman just was walking peacefully at the lone, Leningrad street. And then suddenly she was assaulted by several men. And they grabbed her from the behind, started to choke her, and they stole everything from her. Money, I mean, cash, whatever, jewelry. They even took her boots from her, shoes. And guess what? Who was the guy who was choking her from behind and beating her? His name was Mr. Prigozhin. And that is how Mr. Prigozhin, since 1980, got acquainted with the prison, penitentiary system of the Soviet Union. And that's what everything you need to know about it. But I've been talking about it for months. I was writing about it for months. But now that it came to a head, everybody sees what happens, and there you go. But that's the reason why actually this mutiny didn't live more than 12 hours, really, so.
Well, it leaves a lot of questions unanswered for me. One is, why did the Ministry of Defense put him on such a long leash in the first place?
Very easy explanation. And here comes, that's what I was basically explaining. First, there is a huge animosity of Mr. Prigozhin to Mr. Shoigu. And this all started, and I'm repeating the story now and it's good to be repeated for people to understand. In 2018, when there was a Deir ez-Zor in Syria, complications, let's put it this way. What happened there was very simple. One of the Syrian warlords decided to go over the demarcation line, which are Russian and American staffs there, CENTCOM and Russian, general staff and people immediately at the Khmeimim base, decided to kind of settle and create the deconfliction line there. And they say, yeah, they don't go, over this line. But over this line, there was a pretty rich oil field, and it's a lot of money for those who get this oil field. So, and guess what? Wagner was already present there in a totally private capacity, guarding whatever they were guarding there. And obviously this Syrian warlord decides to go to get those things. And Mr. Prigozhin, sensing money, this is the only thing he knows, how to make money, how to basically, bribe people, how swindle them. He said, oh yeah, let's go there too, because that's big money. And they go over there, this demarcation line there. So CENTCOM calls Russian general staff, and they ask, hey, we have this intrusion. Do you have your guys there from Ministry of Defense? And there are some guys, he said, are those yours? And Ministry of Defense, general staff, and people in Khmeimim said, no, these are not our guys. And Americans say, oh, okay. So they, just they take off those, aircraft, they fly in, bomb the hell out of whatever was there, including those Wagner guys. So Wagner loses, different estimates, nobody knows, 20, 30, some say 80. Basically, they lose half a company of people, basically, there. And Mr. Prigozhin obviously have problems with Ministry of Defense. And then, obviously, he gets humiliated by Shoigu, who told him, you wanted to be a Napoleon? Dude, you are like, this is way out of your league. And that's where the whole thing started. And now we have the situation when Mr. Prigozhin decided completely on his own to improve his negotiation position from the point of view of the contracts from Ministry of Defense and other African countries where there's a lot of business there. And to show how good Wagner is. And guess what? Without coordination, in complete violation of his contracts and how it was described, they get themselves into Bakhmut. And the Russian Ministry of Defense says, what the hell? But guess what? Mr. Prigozhin is a good PR person, as many swindlers are. And guess what? Wagner begins to get its ass handed to that. They begin to die in Bakhmut. So Russian army had to now pull its reserves, get those reserves on the flanks of Wagner. It has to remove, basically move some of the aviation, some of the artillery, some of the heavy equipment like tanks to the Bakhmut sector, which was supposed to be basically open trap for armed forces of Ukraine going in there. And essentially, by efforts of Mr. Prigozhin and Wagner Group, Bakhmut becomes the focal point of this whole and media point of this whole operation. While in reality, the front is 1,000 kilometers long, and there were many things happening there apart from Bakhmut. And there you go.
What was the supposed tactical value of Bakhmut?
Oh, it was merely, from what is known right now, serve as just another trap to allow the armed forces of Ukraine hold on to it, and being slowly ground to the complete, powder. But Mr. Prigozhin wanted again to show how great they are. And then guess how he did it? You get the prisoners, recruits from prisons, and then throw them at the front line. And they die there in huge numbers. And guess what? Then Minister of Defense first stops his ability to recruit from prisons. And that launches him into ballistic, basically, because suddenly he loses the cannon fodder. And then, of course, after that, it was clearly stated that contracts will not be prolonged. And that's where he went completely bananas.
Well, it also raises the question for me, how does the Russian Ministry of Defense regroup and reorganize their activities along this front if they were relying on Wagner so heavily?
They were not, actually. That's the whole point.
Okay.
And that's the whole point. It is a complete misrepresentation of Wagner is nothing more than lightly armed, they prepared storm groups. You don't need to go there with the all heavy stuff when you fight, for example, urban combat. You do need some, like APCs, probably. The rest of it is the small arms, which you can carry. Most of it. And then suddenly, as I already stated, once they got into the Bakhmut, so to prevent their basically envelopment by armed forces of Ukraine, and at that time, the armed forces of Ukraine were pretty well, supplied and organized. So what do? Russian army had to pull some of its crucial reserves to the flanks of this Bakhmut to prevent envelopment, and then, of course, fire reserves, artillery, aviation, tanks, and things like that. Even paratroopers have been given to Prigozhin to cover some of his operations there. And again, Prigozhin is he has zero military background. He's nobody. He was basically a CEO of the military organization, which was run by the Council of the Commanders. So we have Council.
Who are his commanders? Who are his generals? And what is their standing now with the Ministry of Defense?
Many of them have been the former senior officers, others NCOs. So
retired?
Yeah, retired, and and they signed commercial contracts with Wagner. But
are they in disgrace now, or are they moving to other units, or retiring out, or put aside, or what?
Those who went with Prigozhin, of course, are disgraced. And we didn't hear the last story, so to speak, about what is going to happen. But the rest of the people in Wagner, actually, they are decent people. They're not necessarily bad people. And that is why, for example, he thought that he would have support of 20,000 troops, Wagner troops. He ended up with less than 3,000. And this is why it failed so miserably, really fast. And even those 3,000 who went with him to Rostov, and those who were in the column which was moving to Moscow, those were people who have been actually lied to. That is why they were like, what the hell are we doing in Rostov? When we were told that we're going to the Belgorod area to defend the border. And then when they saw Russian special forces massing around Rostov, many of them understood what was going on. And so that's unbelievable stuff, So
I asked a friend today who is he's an American citizen born in Russia. I don't want to reveal his
Sure.
identity, but he's returned to Russia. And I asked him why Prigozhin was treated so gingerly, shall we say. And he says there's no mystery why Prigozhin is being treated with respect. He has rendered heroic service to the nation, both in strengthening Russia's positions in Africa and in Syria, and in helping liberate Soledar and Bakhmut. Neglecting to honor his service would disgrace the Russian government in the eyes of the people. As far as the bad blood between Wagner and the MOD, that was unavoidable given the disparate natures of the two organizations. But that didn't really answer my question. I mean, I don't understand the whole equation of him being sent into Belarus under Lushenko's protection. I don't get it. What's the theory?
Oh, there's no theory. It's every pretty close. Vladimir Putin would have never negotiated with the traitor and terrorist what amounted to terrorism. So, yes, your friend obviously doesn't understand the situation and obviously has very little, basically, the data sets, small data sets to really come to any conclusion. The issue is extremely simple. You do not negotiate with those people. That is why when Vladimir Putin came out and stated the position, which was unequivocally clear, what is this all about? How do you handle this guy? You obviously can actually, in this particular case, use services of Mr. Lukashenko. And Lukashenko was only glad to oblige. And fact is, Mr. Prigozhin is not at the service of Mr. Lukashenko. And there are also other issues regarding his existence right now, as we have been laughing today, earlier today with Ray, Larry, me, and Mike. He better not come close to the open windows because there are many people in Wagner who have to settle some accounts with him. And what many people do not understand, and this has been now finally circulating not only through some circles of people who were in the know but couldn't do anything about it, because obviously Russian media also went for this garbage. But the point is that if you listened, for example, to the former chief of the analytical department of Wagner, which was run by the Council of Commanders, who also manipulated actually Mr. Prigozhin, there's some ungodly things were happening there. For example, Prigozhin, being hysterical prima donna that he is, he actually, people were beaten, people were tortured. There are suspicions now that the people were murdered by him, which I totally believe. And guess what? There are many people who would like now to see, eye to eye with him. So, and let me put it this way. Belarusian KGB is not FSB. FSB is this organization which very similar to how it was, old FBI. They do it by most of the time by the book, by the law. They are very polite. No, KGB in Belarus are different stock. They will be doing it a little bit differently. And basically, so Mr. Prigozhin is nobody now.
So is he on ice?
Sorry?
Is he on ice?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And don't forget, the charges against him were dropped only insofar as the mutiny goes. But there are many other types of charges which are coming, including some very interesting financial situation with his Concord group, which was actually into money laundering and, jacking prices for a long time now.
Yeah, I was wondering how, what the money stream was from the Russian treasury to Wagner. And if they were
80 billion rubles a year for Wagner alone, which is roughly $1 billion per year for Wagner alone. And he had other things which were, guess what? Those catering services. The guy basically is the fast food and catering service guy. That's what it is. And that's when every time you would bring it up in more mainstream media in Russia, they will be, no, he's like military genius. No, he's not. He's a freaking organized criminal. And by that time, you would be looked at like, oh, no, you just don't understand what you're talking about. But, well, we did.
He sounds like a
And
true American providing guns and fast food.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is. That's what it is. And now that his actually persona have been blown out, and so everybody has to see what normal people noticed. And again, Wagner is a lightly armored, basically military corps. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. But again, in Bakhmut, they ran their casualties up to 50 to 60%. Primarily throwing this cannon fodder of those prisoners, at the front line. So there are a lot of other issues there, So
Here's something I also have not understood for the longest time is how is it possible that Russia cannot prevent this resupply from going across this vast prairie out there to the front line in the Donbass, all the way from the western Ukraine all the way to Donbass? Why are they unable to intercept the movement of these arms and vehicles?
oh no, they able, and what it is, obviously, it's not being reported much. But if you look attentively, they are moving very little now by the rail, which is, of course, main lane of communications and supply.
Uh-huh.
And most of it is done, except when we're dealing with the issues of, for example, like tanks. Yeah, you have to move them by rail. But believe me, many of the railroad stations are being, basically blown up. But in terms of a lot of supplies which are, for example, shells and some other munitions, you move them by trucks and even by the automobiles. And the question here is, Russia is not fighting the war. Many people still do not understand that. Russia fights the special military operation. And this is in extremely restrained in terms of the attacking any kind of the civilian targets, let alone, there is a truck going. What is in this truck? Russia knows it, Russia sees it, but only when they arrive to some specific point of destination, then you bomb this specific point of destination. It is like, it's the issue of the ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, like what happened 2 days in Kramatorsk. And
so Ukraine doesn't put a big they don't put lettering on the top of a big truck that says arms going to the east.
Oh no, they put, especially their medical services.
Yeah,
there's a lot of medical and emergency medical vehicles which are used for the delivery of weapons, and so there you go.
Well, this has been happening for the last 30 years in conflicts around the world, where especially in the wars that we've had with the Arab people, where they use ambulances and as attack vehicles, etc.
Yeah.
I want to run my fantasy about what's going on past you, and you can comment on that. And I call it a fantasy because I'm not on the ground there, and I don't have any firsthand reporting from it. But I'm trying to put a picture together in my own head, as many American, public intellectuals will try. So my idea is first that Mr. Putin and Russia now want this thing to be over as quickly as possible. And my idea about this is that Mr. Putin has tried to not make a mess out of Ukraine so that it will not be a failed state at the end of this process, because he doesn't want a failed state on his doorstep any more than he wants a Western-sponsored aggressor on his doorstep. So this fits into your idea that the special military operation is not a exactly a war fighting enterprise. It's something a bit different. I wonder how would you imagine that they will try to end this thing sooner rather than later, understanding that Russia does not consider the Western allies or adversaries to be worthy of negotiation at this point?
There are a couple of things. First, your vector of thinking is absolutely correct. But there are things, well, and we can always remember this, defeat of Russians at Kiev. Well, in reality, it was the gesture of the goodwill while the Istanbul negotiations were happening and Ukrainians were ready to sign it. Then, of course, Boris Johnson flies in and voila, we have the situation. And then they starting to, herald it. Oh, yeah, it's such a great defeat. No, Russians were just withdrawing, and you're absolutely correct. Nobody wanted to destroy Ukraine. Now the issue of destroying Ukraine or regime change is out there, and how it will be done technically. We have speculated today that probably Vilnius summit on the 12th, I believe, right? July, NATO Ukraine summit will be kind of watershed moment, because Russians will decide, do they want to see more, American now field weaponry, weapon system annihilated by Russians, such as Abrams tanks or F-16s. They will be all annihilated. So
bad public relations.
Oh, well, yeah, it's very bad already for Raytheon. Let me put it this way, extremely bad. And to put it mildly, especially after the performance of the NASAMS and especially the Patriot, which was wiped out. Actually, the 5 complexes, 5 batteries have been, not launchers, batteries. There were 5 different complexes. So much for the effectiveness. But so yeah, Leopard was considered the best tank in the world, and you saw what happened. So this is a real combined arms operation which Pentagon never encountered in its existence. And when you look at this, can Russia decided starting, for example, major offensive on, let's say, sometime in July? Sure, possible. How probable it is? I think so. Kremlin still waits for their summit in Vilnius, see what they will come up with, or maybe they will start the whole thing precisely timed for the summit in Vilnius to show that, guys, don't even try, it's useless, the resistance is futile, so, and we'll see what can take it from there.
You don't get the feeling that the other European nations are so enthusiastic for this project anymore.
Oh, no, they're not.
And I don't know what's keeping them from expressing themselves about that. Maybe they're waiting for the meeting in Vilnius.
No, they will. Europeans are not subjects. They are objects. So, and they will tell, United States will tell them jump. They will ask how high. Do not forget, they already passed their, so to speak, they on the other side of the hill now, because they already de facto destroyed European economy.
Yeah.
And so it's too late now, it's, as a Russian proverb has, it's too late to drink the mineral water when you have your kidneys fall apart, So it's the same thing here. It's too late, guys. I mean, it's over. European Union is done. Fact is, NATO is also done. It's the dead man walking. And right now, obviously, entrenched elites in Europe who are absolutely near-liberal, neocon, and others, they obviously counting their days numbered, because obviously their economic situation in Europe will be only deteriorating. It might keep United States alive for a while, which is kinda, but again, you know what, if Raytheon and other arms dealers want to see their equipment going up in flames, they're welcome to do it, So Russia plays for the obviously major political change in Europe. So somebody new has to come. The same as the issue with the United States. But the United States right now, as you know, judging by the latest sit rep from Mr. Biden, Russia already losing in Iraq. So
Yes.
I'm pretty sure very soon Russia will lose in Vietnam. And of course, Afghanistan comes.
Grenada.
That's pretty much it, guys. Who do you talk to in Washington? Anybody tell me?
That's
Who?
a very good question. But another question that I have is, what will be the effect of an American humiliation in this episode?
Any different from
our country is
GWOT
really
or Vietnam? No,
Huh?
just move. I said a humiliation. Any different from the global war on terror or Vietnam?
Yeah,
Move to the next one.
It's different because the country is demonstrably more insane now than it was then.
It's not only that. The American military bluff, of which I wrote 3 books, have been finally called. And when Mr. Cavoli, 4-star general, the supreme commander of the NATO forces, comes out in January on record through all those major outlets and saying, scale, 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 we never saw anything like this. And Russia didn't even start the war in this case. People still don't understand. There is 500,000 on troops standing behind the lines. They're ready to go. Why they're standing there? Well, maybe to prevent some stupid suicidal thing on the part of Romania and Poland. That could be the case too, but maybe because if NATO decides to commit suicide, Russia will move its borders back to who knows where. So, and this is just the situation. And now, I mean, come on. I mean, for people who graduated the Top Gun Maverick School of Military Studies in the United States, it is absolutely, obviously humiliating to see what is happening. And this, I wrote about it in 6 years ago. Well, I wrote about it earlier than that, but I published it 6 years ago first time, and I stated United States weapon systems and the whole doctrine is based to make money, on making money. A Russian military doctrine and equipment is made to kill and as efficiently as possible. So there you go.
That not even to be like some edgy douchebag, but I mean, when you think about like United States healthcare, I mean, it is right. It's to make money. It's to make customers, right?
And it's worse than that. It's a gigantic racketeering operation.
But that's my point. So I'm not even trying to make some like edgy comment, but that just seems to be America through and through, is just to make money. So
well, why would
our military not be any different?
Let me make a point about what you just said. Right. It's necessary to make a distinction between making money and racketeering.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The whole world wants to make a living one way or another.
Yeah.
And the whole world, has enterprises that want to make profits. But it's the essence of racketeering that it's making money dishonestly.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, is that's become normal at the large scale, as Andrei just mentioned the word scale.
As Smedley Butler said,
racketeering has reached a scale in the United States that is unprecedented and is doing tremendous damage to what remains of the country.
Yeah, it's horrendous. It's
and medicine is just astounding. There are all these school shootings in the USA, and I am amazed that there haven't been more shootings in the business offices of the hospitals, because all of these normal American moms and dads get a bill for bringing their kid to the emergency room for a broken finger, and they get a bill for $7,000.
Yeah.
And it ruins them.
Yeah. If you don't have insurance, you're done.
And even if you do have insurance, if it has a $12,000 deductible, it's ridiculous. So people are being ruined by our by our medical system, and it's I don't know how we got off on that, but I want to get back to one thing about the
I was gonna real quick. What I was gonna say about what Andrei said about the Russians are made to kill. It's like the whole idea of like when NASA invented the pen to write in zero gravity, and it cost like $1 million, and Russia just brought a pencil. It's like, get the job done. And that is admirable. And when it comes to war, it's like, yeah, they're not boosting Raytheon stock. They're there to what war is kill as many as the other motherfuckers as you can, to put it bluntly.
Tommy, they also had to engineer the zero gravity pencil sharpener.
Right. That real nice one, Jeff. But what were you gonna say before I rudely cut you off?
What I was gonna say was I'm curious about what the tactical situation is going forward with this 1,000-mile front, and what is really worth what is the terrain that really is worth fighting over, and how do you see the ultimate positive disposition of the situation on the ground?
If you look attentively at, for example, this counteroffensive, first 15 days of this so-called counteroffensive, they didn't even breach the line of the supply, let alone first line of defense. It's just absolutely unprecedented in the world history, military history. Again, I can guarantee you 200% people in the U.S. General Staff and Command College in Leavenworth, Kansas, and in Pentagon, they have their jaws on the floor, okay? They never saw anything like this. It was stopped. And now, if you look intensively at the dynamics of the KIAs and casualties of armed forces of Ukraine, it slowed down somewhat because basically the best forces of the strategic reserve have been killed or wounded to the point of no return. And we already saw those fields of burning tanks and everything. And again, it's not even in the first line of defense. It's about 10 kilometers from the first line of defense. What it's called, it is within what is called the sector or line or strip of the supply. When you break into the first line of defense, this is where your logistics train comes in. They didn't even go there. They were annihilated there. And yesterday, I believe it was 20,000 killed KIAs multiplied by 2, 3. So you have basically strategic reserve with the best trained, brigades wiped out.
20,000 killed yesterday, or as of
not yesterday. From the start of the offensive.
Gotcha. Okay.
Before. And so what you have now, many people do not remember. But actually, strategic defense doesn't mean that you don't go on the offense. And the Russians right now, if you look attentively, they're near Kupiansk, which was abandoned 8 months ago for a reason. And guess what? Russians are back at the outskirts of Kupiansk. So there is a movement. Nobody reports it in the West. And guess what? Russia recovered a huge number of territories, which it had to abandon at that time. And what many people do not understand, not on a single occasion, armed forces of Ukraine forced Russian retreat. That's the thing which, because each time it was, we don't want to, Russians remove their personnel, they get those Ukrainian forces in, then they blow them up, Well,
why do you suppose the American strategic people in government don't get the message that this is an exercise in futility and it was completely unnecessary in the first place?
Because American foreign policy establishment is very uneducated and extremely uncultured, actually, They don't read Tolstoy. Many of them don't speak Russian. Of course, when you have scholars like Michael McFaul, who is laughing stock, actually, among professionals. No, he is. The guy lives in the alternative universe. And they do live in the alternative universe. And let me quote, I'm quoting, direct quote. It is in my books. And in his book, Future of War, Major General Latif, 20 years in DARPA, PhD in physics, okay? So the guy knows things. And I quote, most of what American public and American political elite know about war, they know from the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And this is American general who, and let me put it this way.
What's the name of future of war.
Give me any guy, including military guy, from Council on Foreign Relations, including Mr. Haas, and let me communicate with him on operational, forget strategic matters. They will not get it. They have no toolkit to process it and to understand it, because they grew up with the movies and, Gulf War and the movies about how John Wayne saved the world from Nazism.
What was the name of the general that wrote it?
Latif. General Robert Latif.
Andrei, many years ago, when I was a young newspaper man and working for the hippie papers in Boston, I also moonlighted at a company that wrote term papers for money.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was a shadowy operation, not necessarily legal, and eventually put out of business. But we wrote at many levels, and we charged different prices for this.
Yeah.
I was not in the managerial class. I was just working in a place called the Tank, where we produced all the papers that the freelancers didn't want. And a couple of the guys were writing term papers and master's papers for the Navy War College.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, that's absolutely, I can totally believe it. But yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's if you look at Russia's, for example, and Soviet military education, it is nothing like what it is in the United States. Never was. It's much longer and much more trying in terms of academics and in terms of the combat use. So, and well, just to give you example, Naval Academy in Soviet Union and Russia, 5 years, 6 days a week. So it's six academic years. You go out with a graduate engineering degree and a bachelor equivalent of bachelor's in military science. So there you go. And this is nothing like West Point or even U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. When you look at this, and then but they created this picture, so to speak, of Russia as balalaika, bears, vodka, Ushanka hats, and things like that.
What do you make of the actual strength of NATO in terms of its ability to marshal troops or divisions for any kind of real combat?
Not with Russia. In terms of combined arms and in terms of the conventional warfare, I will quote my friend, the colonel of the central apparatus of the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, a good friend of mine. He was today on the Channel 1 on Russian TV. And he is a very good friend of mine. He says, we don't sweat about European NATO. Okay?
I guess that
United States is different. United States has now 11 divisions. Okay? How do you deliver those 11 divisions? How you deploy them when United States never fought a war in which its rear going to be burning like hell, United States never fought a war in which every single field headquarters is under the danger of being annihilated, and it will be detected. The firing solution will be developed, and nothing going to intercept cruise missiles which will fly in. And the United States Army has no experience with that.
My impression over the last several months was that before a lot of things happened, like the blowing up the dam and the Prigozhin coup and all that, Russia might have allowed Ukraine to keep Odessa and the port to the Sea of Azov. But now I think that may not be the case. One has to assume that that they're really pissed off now, and it's getting to the point where they're going to want to punish Ukraine rather quickly. And just get a plain capitulation from them. And that raises the question: if Ukraine capitulates, or if Zelensky is eliminated, or some combination, would the U.S. and NATO just say, "Well, that doesn't matter. We're still in the fight"?
I don't know. They're very good at PR, So, and as funny as it sounds, there is still a school of thought exists in the United States which considers that United States won in Vietnam. I'm not kidding. There are some people who say we didn't lose in Vietnam. So, I mean, how are you going to communicate with those people? Nobody cares what they think. It's either show me the money or not. Do they want to escalate? They will be annihilated conventionally, and United States is not ready. It doesn't have experience. For example, in case, let's imagine they go and deploy all those 11 divisions, somehow, if anybody allows them to deliver them to
That would
Europe.
be suicidal.
Yeah. So, okay, what's going to happen? Well, I will quote you Larry Wilkerson, Colonel Larry Wilkerson, the chief of staff of Colin Powell. And this video is on the internet, on the YouTube. He stated what will be the amount of the casualties of the United States in the first week. Two guys asked him, two journalists. He said 40,000 at least.
Yeah.
So
in the first week, and that's only 10,000 less than the Vietnam War.
Yeah, than
Vietnam
War.
War.
So it's people do not understand what they are dealing with here, and now they begin to understand. It is one thing hunting the guys in the sandals with the RPG, and totally another when you go against S-400 and Book M3 and Su-35 and Su-57. And they, you know what? If you look attentively, right now, each day there is the same number of the shut down Ukrainian aircraft, both fixed wing and rotary wing. It stays the same. You know why it stays the same? They don't fly anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And they cannot. And those people, you have those people who do not understand that Russia has an extremely advanced ISR complex, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And there is a lot of which is flying there in space, electronic warfare. NATO is not even in the same league in terms of the electronic warfare. So when you look at this, and then, of course, Russia can immediately mobilize additional 2 million people. So it's a completely different culture. They don't have the sense of it, including in Pentagon. They really believe that they are that great, And what can I say? This is
I'm trying to think of what an orderly ending to this crisis will be, and what that leaves Ukraine. It's my understanding that most of the valuable economic stuff was on the east side of the Dnieper River. I don't know how much of the grain growing capacity is on the west side. Is that a valuable agricultural area?
Well, it has some, obviously. Yeah, they do. But then, of course, the more you go to the west, the more mountainous it becomes, and eventually it grows into Carpathian range, and a lot of Western Ukraine actually is in the mountains, So, yeah, but in terms of Western part, I don't know, it has certainly some agricultural capacity there. But as you already, and you correctly noticed, that probably we're looking at Russia deciding at some point of time taking Odessa, building this ground bridge between Transnistria and getting this ramp, installing the regime, which is not insane, and going from there, so some like that, but this is as far as I can forecast it, because nobody knows what general staff thinks, and Putin is a very prudent leader. He already told them, you guys deal with this, okay? You just tell me what we want to do. We'll sit, we'll decide how to do it. Of course, there is a Security Council. There is Mr. Patrushev, Mr. Lavrov, Mr. Bortnikov, Mr. Narishkin, all those intel and foreign policy specialists, Mr. Medvedev and all that. So, and then we have the decision what to do, because obviously we don't know what is getting on the table of Putin and his team each morning as the intelligence briefing.
Well, I would think that the bottom line is that Russia and really any other country that had any sense does not want Ukraine to make itself a problem in that region of the world. The
Oh
world does
yeah,
not need to have problems created in Ukraine.
but yet,
And so that is the basic answer, is that, you know, this part of the world has to be pacified and neutralized. And, you know, it's not a trophy of war.
no,
It
oh
can
no, no, no.
continue being whatever it can be as a region. I must say this too, you know, the macro trend, in my view of the situation and the world situation, the macro trend is for just about everything to become downscaled, less centralized, more localized. And so the Ukraine that we're seeing in the last, you know, several decades is a Ukraine that was a borderland at the height of the techno-industrial phase of history. You know, in a decentralized phase of history that we're entering, and a relocalized phase of history, it seems to me that Ukraine once again becomes even more of a borderland, of a kind of terra, you know, terra incognita for political relations.
Putin, few days ago, actually stated a very important thing. And Putin, he says what he means. And what he means, he does. He stated, and it was repeated by Medvedev, he stated about the cordon sanitaire.
Yeah.
And so there is no doubt now that Russia will be moving its borders. How far? You know, your guess is good as mine in this particular case. We know just if that's going to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, let's at least keep Vilnius as some kind of reference point. Vilnius summit, could it be before? Well, absolutely could be before, to put the whole summit out of business to start with, you know? So yeah, it's too late, guys, bye-bye. Or maybe they will say, okay, send in more. Let's damage US military, you know, what's left of reputation even more. Let's show those, you know, dozens of Abrams burning, you know, F-16s shut down, and then we'll go and do our thing. Who knows? They know things which on a way bigger level, so to a larger level, than we do here, you know. So there are some policy decisions which are coinciding and coordinated with the military decisions, you know.
Well,
so,
also you can't overstate the degree of political disorder that we are entering in the United States.
exactly.
I mean, right now, the federal government is creeping forward, you know, creeping along under the burden of an incompetent leader who is he's not only not capable, but he's now being accused of some of the gravest crimes ever in American history for a leader. He's just so burdened with and unable to really act. And now the system is being it's being compelled to act against him. It's obvious that, you know, this accomplice of the mainstream media is now turning against him and is getting ready to throw him off the ship. And if he doesn't, you know, if it doesn't go voluntarily, he's going to be dragged away kicking and screaming. I don't think Mr. Biden is going to be in the White House at the end of the summer.
I think
but it raises the question of the question of who will be. You know,
Jim, I think you're making a good point. Is he might be, you know, in everything military. Whenever there's a problem, you always have to have a fall guy. You always have to have a scapegoat, and it's often the dead guy. If they just remove him, not in a dead sense, but just out of the White House, that might be the orderly end to the Ukraine war. Someone else comes in and goes, you just wipe the whole. It doesn't even have to make
someone
rational
else.
sense.
We know it's going to be Kamala Harris, at least under
the
rules of the game.
It won't be that dumb bitch making calls. It'll
Tommy,
be the military.
Tommy, why
use it as a scapegoat.
Why would there be any different group of people running Kamala Harris?
Yeah, there will be same group.
But the thing is,
you can pin
the whole dog shit on Biden.
Oh, no, you
If-
probably can, yeah, but
if they want an orderly end. That's if they want it.
But
Well,
considering the level of this group, and it's Susan Rice, everybody knows Susan Rice. It's the same bunch of the illiterate hacks who do not understand how the world works. They never studied it, because basically pretty much the whole American Ivy League departments, or the foreign relations and for example international relations and what have you, have to be completely abolished, because they don't teach shit, actually, pardon my French, So what they teach there is the American exceptionalism, and it's basically brainwashing. It's ideological conditioning, basically. And how do you talk to those people? They think that General Patton won World War II. So what can I say?
okay, so getting back to my point, we are going to be in a very, very disorderly situation with more than a year to go into the next election, and very little confidence in among many Americans that the election will be an upright affair.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that we're going to be able to pay much attention to what's going on in the rest of the world. Well, we are already not paying attention if the news is any index of our capacity to pay attention. And of course, there hardly is any news anyway. Americans may have noticed that over the years, when you turn on a TV news show, they no longer have people reporting from foreign
No,
capitals.
they don't report anything. It's
They have no reporters anymore.
Yeah, it's infotainment. American and Western journalism completely discredited itself, completely. And actually, same goes to a large portion of the Russian so-called journalists. I think so. It comes with the territory, and they faced something they were never prepared to face. They don't have the toolkit, even if they wanted to report it properly. So, and we have, which is good, I believe, a lot of truly independent and honest and people with integrity who begin to report, and eventually, I hope so, they come and substitute those people. But what we have right now, establishment media, it's garbage. And people who run it, those editors, they are also human garbage, because they know what they commit, because they commit basically fraud. Many of them can reasonably be charged with enabling of the war crimes. You can charge the whole editorial staff of New York Times, for example, or Washington Post as enablers of the atrocity. And guess what? While I definitely, my pro-Russian position is well known, I don't hide it, but let me tell you, those people are the ones who throwing the as much as the Ukraine has to cease to exist as it exists now, but they throwing tens of thousands of lives of people, many of whom do not want even fight. They throw them into the meat grinder, and they just feel joyful about it.
Is there any sense in Russia of sympathy for the Ukrainian people going
not for
this?
Ukrainian people, but there is a degree of the kind of sadness. Let me put it this way: sadness. Not for Nazi formations. Oh, Nazi formations, no. But there is an incredible thing which happened 2 months ago. I wrote about it. You can have the guy. It's on the YouTube. You can see it. You have the guy who from the armed forces of Ukraine, who obviously was taken from the street, and he's like 50 years old, okay, or 45 maybe, and he gets wounded, pretty badly situation, wounded with the leg. Horrendous wound on the leg, and he lays down, and you see the Russian what's the name of it, UAV, the drone hovering over it, and you can hear Russian operators of the drone and say, oh boy, the footy using their kind of diminutive, like we see, and the guy lying on the ground, so he hands, waves his hands showing, guys, go ahead, those are retreating. And they say, just wait, our guys will come, they will help you, So there is this degree. You have to understand that many of those Ukrainians who do not know, huge numbers, they are being executed by shooting them in the backs when they try to surrender. And that's why I'm saying those people in Washington Post, at CNN, at New York Times, at The Economist, at the Financial Times, those are enablers of the war crimes. In fact, many of them are war criminals themselves. This is the Goebbelsonian level of propaganda, which is responsible for the enormous amount of the atrocities, both on the military field, the battlefield, and against civilians. So, and I eagerly anticipate the opening of the War Crimes Tribunal, which will be, which already is being prepared as we speak in Moscow and Donetsk. And there will be many foreign names there, which will be listed and charged. Yep.
Well, Andrei, you and I both live in the United States.
Yep.
How do you see the current situation playing out going forward? Because it seems to me that things are not going to be able to remain the way they have been.
Yeah.
You know, we're reaching a point of criticality now. Personally, I'm viewing this the presence of Robert Kennedy Jr. as being a very big game changer for the politics in the USA.
Hopefully.
I'm not saying that he would necessarily win a nomination to run for office, but I think that he's going to turn the Democratic Party inside out, and I think he may even drive the demons out of it.
That would be, yeah.
But he's doing a couple of things. One is that he's presenting the persona of a reasonable, normal person.
Yeah.
In contrast to the craziness of the leadership that we see. And he is also bringing arguments and questions into the arena, into the public arena, that people have not been willing to entertain until now. And I think he's going to force them to entertain these questions, especially about the war, and then you know, also about the deadly pharmaceutical racket and the trip that's been laid on all the people of the world, really.
Not only that, and I hear you, and I agree, actually. There is also the issue of the American media, establishment media.
Oh, yeah.
They must go. They are, as I already stated, they are people of the lowest, both psychiatric and moral denominator. Most of them are.
Yeah, you know, the New York Times has never, the editor of the New York Times who presided over most of Russiagate was a character named Dean Baquet, or Dean Beckett. He was a newspaperman originally from New Orleans, I believe. And he never had to answer for the dishonesty of the New York Times presenting that phony 3-4 year long persecution. And his successor, whose name I forget at the moment, has never uttered a word. I mean, nobody even knows. I can't even tell you his name because he's never in the news. But, you know, one wonders how these people are going to account for themselves.
Well, to what Andrei just said is how they have to go. I mean, but like any old guard, they never go. They're forcibly removed or they're replaced.
Yeah,
and I think we're seeing that in slow motion. With, I mean, Rumble, I think, has grown like 10,000% in the last year. Elon Musk buying Twitter. It's going to be a several year process. And then one day we're going to look around and go, when did that all die? And it's, you know, it's just going to happen slowly.
Yeah.
Throw out all those psychos from CNN, from, well, Rachel Maddow. She knows shit about anything. How this political scientist, so to speak, knows anything. She is an ideologue, and she herself, you know, claimed that she has a depression. Oh, she has more than depression, you know. And we have those people like, and so, and now when you look at this, yeah, there's no doubt the steam is building. The steam is there. So if we want to preserve the republic, you know, people say, you know, why don't you go back to Russia? I mean, legitimate question, but I'm United States citizen and I love this country. You know, I always say, I don't want to go to Moscow or even St. Petersburg or anywhere, because each morning I need to go out of my house and look at the mountains and feel the ocean. Okay. Even that's localism, James, which you're writing about constantly. I love Wyoming and Montana more than I love Seattle. I love those small American, well, not large American cities, towns. I love it. And that's what it is. It's just you become local. You kind of get your roots. And so I have a vested interest for this country to survive, but obviously it cannot continue like this anymore. We are ending on the incredible historic moment. I lived through collapse of the Soviet Union, and I thought I saw it all. I almost died 3 times, almost killed during that transition, so to speak.
How did that happen?
Oh gosh, so long story short, there were events in the Caucasus which I was the part of, and if you look at the Armenian-Azerbaijani conflict, we were caught right in between it. So it's a long story short, but yeah, and there was some incredible violence. Armed violence, to put it mildly. So, but it's not for this time to discuss. But what I'm saying is the country cannot continue like this anymore.
So you were, Russia was in a situation that was similar in 1989-90. They couldn't continue anymore under the Soviet regime.
It was
But
the center
once the whole thing turned over, and and you went through that whole Jeffrey Sachs episode of the looting of the assets of the Soviet Union. How did Russia deal with the people at the highest echelons of the news media and the people who had behaved the most badly towards their own citizens in their own country? Did they just get a badge of shame, or were they persecuted?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And not only that, most of them have been dispossessed of their loot. So, and most of others, like Mr. Berezovsky, he suicided himself by shooting himself in the back of the head. No, he was hanged in his bathroom, and he hung himself probably 5 or 6 times before he was dead. So wink, wink, so that's like this. And the same as Skripal's,
but that looked like a totally phony operation.
Well, everything is phony. So, and those oligarchs, as I already stated, they ran. They have been dispossessed and they ran.
But what about the people, the managerial class, the people who went along with the worst of it?
Long process. Some of those people were decent people. They just wanted to, leave. And Russia, many people don't know it, but Russian losses, direct losses, as the result of the so-called reforms of 1990s, about 6 million people died as the result of that. This is the thing, and I think so. Even today, the removal, and by the way, Prigozhin event helped tremendously to identify, the litmus test. So that's gonna help a lot. And so, but those people have been removed steadily without, rocking the boat, so to speak. And special military operation, when it started, it kind of put everything in its own place, and the normal reference points returned, both economically, socially, culturally, and so that is why Russians never felt better in their lives than they, feel today. Not to speak of that they never lived better than they live today, So, and that's how it happened. And sometimes you don't need to kill people.
Yeah.
You just...
I want to say something about myself. In case there's any confusion in your listeners or anybody who follows my writing about whether, I'm against my own country in this Ukraine matter. I feel bad that I have to regard the policy of my own country as insane. But it just seems to me that looking at the game board objectively, you have these two adversaries here. You have the USA and you have Russia. The USA is absolutely immersed and marinated in insanity and lunatic behavior that a child of 12 would find ridiculous. And then you look at how people behave in Russia, and you know what you see is a country that appears to be sane. Now, you know, how is it that that all flipped after 30 years? You know, 30 years ago, we thought that the Soviet system was insane, and that we were rational actors. But you know, history is very tricky.
Yeah, it is.
History plays tricks on people and on nations and on groups of people. And we find ourselves in the peculiar position today where the USA is acting like a lunatic rogue force in the world. I hope that we can correct our situation.
Yeah,
And
that's the
I hope
hope.
to be part of that correction, to, you know, to encourage people to think rationally about what's going on in the world. I'm not rooting against my country
Yeah,
and rooting for its
absolutely.
adversary, but I think that, you know, we don't have a very good case in this fight. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to say that and make that clear.
same here, as I already stated. I have vested interest. You know, we lived in the United States now for 30 years. Do I like Russia? I love Russia. Oh, absolutely. I still remain Russian ethnically and culturally. Although I always tell to my friends who said, "Oh yeah, just move back to," I said, "Guys, you have to understand, we, in many respects, not all, are also Americans. You know, in many respects, we kind of got used to this." As already, there was a joke I made to my friends that I said, you know what? As much as I like, and Moscow is stunning. Many Russian cities are just absolutely stunning, clean, safe. I mean, it's magnificent. But I said, you know what? I would miss at that time. I would say I would miss Jay Leno because this is the best way to put me to sleep. I love the guy. I mean, so it's like, yeah, those little things, which idiosyncrasies, which you cannot get anymore, So I can tolerate Moscow for 2 weeks. After that, I need to escape somewhere, because Muscovites love it. I don't, so I'm different person now. And America is the country for me, and that is why we're always like, okay, we have great
It's
value for the house, but we need to stay here, it's our country now,
well, to what Jim said in clarifying all that, it's not anti-American to have concerns about the path of America.
Yeah.
If you have a friend that's getting into drugs or drinking too much and you pull them aside and say, "Hey, I've known you for 20 years and I love you. You need to fucking stop." That's not a bad friend. That's a loving friend.
That's a good
So
friend.
it's one thing to go out and say, "Fuck this country, burn it down." Well, that is anti-American. Destroy the Constitution. That's not American. It's very American to say, "Why are we funding this war? We have problems at home." That's not anti-American. That's
Well, we went through this before in the 1960s when I was in college, and I learned a very important lesson back then, which is your government may be behaving badly, but it doesn't mean that you don't love your country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for example, we have so many friends here, American friends, not just Russian friends, American friends, my dearest friends, some of them former military. We have the family, which is, for all intents and purposes, is closer to us than some of our relatives, so it's just like, it's my country. And I kind of, I lived here long enough, and you're going like, how the hell did this happen so fast? Literally, in 10 years, it went. Well, I remember in 1999 when NATO was gang raping Serbia on the totally false premises. I thought like, probably mistake. Things happen, mistakes happen, And then when Iraq happened, it's like, dudes, they had nothing to do with 9/11, It's just, and why are you doing this? And that's when I started to reevaluate what was going on. And then one began to get into the neck of the woods of the neocon psychology and mindset and the American exceptionalism. Then you say, you know what, screw that. I mean, this is horrible. The worst what was in the America for now is the example of what happens to the country when the worst gets the hold of it. So
well, the cultural degeneration has probably been the leading the head of the spear in this, you know, the culture, including the enforced ignorance and brainwashing of the kids in the school.
Oh yeah, it's
Has
absolutely
produced a
inadmissible. Yeah.
fiasco.
It's inadmissible, and there are so many things which, yeah, it's a very complex issue now, and we have to deal with the issue of pedophilia now, and people basically, you know, just trying to
There's nothing to
establish, you know,
deal with. You need to blowtorch that shit before it grows.
yeah, exactly.
There's nothing to negotiate with pedophilia.
This is when the you know, once civilization begins to do it, it implodes, and that time for the pitchforks comes in, you know.
Yeah, when you start seeing grown men in streets hanging their balls in front of kids, that's the robot voice in the cockpit of a plane saying terrain pull up. That's the end. You got to fucking pull up, or you deserve the hellfire that's coming.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Well,
guys, listen, I really need to go now.
Sure.
Well, we have been at it for more than an hour already.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's good. It's good.
Hey, Andrei, I got to say, you have the most stylish office equipment behind you.
Yeah, it's not equipment. It's actually the, what's the name of it? How you call it? A fake background.
Oh.
Okay, so it's fake. No, but by the way, the equipment behind me is the famous Soviet youngsters photo. No, it's called Smena 8.
Oh.
So this
is the equipment behind me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The plastic lizard with the plastic bug.
So I'm using this thing just, you know, like.
My background's real. That's not a green screen.
Oh yeah, it's a good background. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So, all right, guys.
Well, guys, yeah, thank you for doing it. And to everybody listening, I can't recommend enough. Really, please go into the description. Please go grab Andrei's book, "Losing Military Supremacy." It's a sobering examination, and as you can tell through this podcast and the previous times he's been on here, yes, he's from Russia, but he's an American. He loves this country, and as we said, criticizing the country isn't anti-American. It's you're examining red flags and you're trying to make it better. So that applies to both Andrei and Jim. So if you don't like what they're saying, shut up. They're providing tough love. Shut up.
Well, thank you for having us on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, yes. In the beginning of Roger Waters' show, we watched it at Tacoma Dome. When he gets this incredible, setup on the stage, and say, you don't like my politics? Fuck off. Go to the bar and get yourself a drink.
Exactly. You don't have to be here. No one's putting a gun to your head. You don't have to be in this. You don't have to be watching this live stream. I don't like what they're saying. Go fuck yourself. Who gives a shit? Gentlemen, thank you so much, guys. Again, please go into the description. Please go support Andrei. Grab his book. You can go follow Jim on Twitter. Andrei, I don't know if you're on Twitter or not.
No,
okay, not on Twitter. Well, his blog is in the description. So is Jim's blog. So is Jim's podcast. Please go check those out. Please go support them. And yeah, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thank you very much. My pleasure, guys. It's always pleasure, James. It's always pleasure and privilege. Thank you, Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the guys who watched us.
Thank you so much, guys.